We are we are in the stream. We on the stream. Um, there's there's a there's a lot I gotta do. You know, today it's 9 a.m. but I've been awake since 4 a.m. I already spent 5 hours on playing a little bit of Counter Strike, uh, feeding myself, showering, exercise. Um, I did a little bit of research on what would be a good description for my thingy, for my live stream. And even though I have it as day 8, I might even restart the count. Um okay. Yesterday my stream was not working on Twitch and now it does. So that's cool. Um um okay. My hair looks disgusting. My hair looks disgusting, but we're not here for the looks. I wonder what mining I need to get to so mithril ore, true silver. I guess you could store all of these in an array of different types of ores, and that could be in an array of different types of resources. And I guess you can add. How can you add things to that array? Well, I guess you could specifically get a certain thing and set a certain um a certain variable either on or off depending on. Dude, it's almost there. It's almost there. It's almost there in my head. 175, 245. You could do mithril. And then 245 to that. Mithril, true silver, thorium. Just do mithril and thorium all the way up. Okay. Um, that's cool. So maybe we can take keep reading on open world server today. We'll keep on doing the coding lessons. I think I'll start out with the coding lessons today. And then maybe we'll do like 5 hours of coding. And then we'll jump into. Oh, we'll have to take a break at that point because it's 5 hours of non-stop doing something. So let's go ahead and it's 9:08. Let's go ahead and dive into this. I have two different scenes here. So I have a scene up here. This should oh, okay. This is the video scene. This should only show my video. But where's the video?
No in between, this code will only be executed once.
Oh, in order to get the video, then I gotta go into properties again and then just select it one more time. And then that's how we get that. And now we go to level 3 is all of it. So level 1. What's level 1? Level 1 is what? Me. Oh, okay. Yeah, I should have just. Okay, I don't even understand this, but it's okay.
So let's test that out. Click compile, go back to our map, and click on simulate. As you can see, Koki Games only printed once. Let's go back. Very simple node, but very useful. This
Okay, I gotta restart this tutorial because yesterday I don't remember anything.
hello.
Uh, okay, so I think my title's gotta be different. It's gotta be a year in. But like, fuck. My shit gotta be different though. Okay, that's my YouTube. That's this, that. That's the master class. What? How long do I need to boil beets for? Oh, we got an update. Okay, day 8 already got an update. Let's get on. Day 8 already got an update. That rhymes because the universe is divine. Like that comes through and lets you know that it's good to stay in school. I You know what I'm saying? Alright, so we're going to just like do that for a little bit while we download this. Download this. Let's listen to this.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the course. In this lesson, we will take a look at code execution flow.
Okay.
We will learn about nodes that allow us to execute code based on specific conditions, restrict execution, or simply allow us to repeat a certain part of our code several times. All of this will give us the ability to control the order in which our code executes within our game.
Oh
Let's get
shit.
started.
Sounds very important.
And now that we're back into Unreal, let's go ahead and remove these top nodes here from our previous example. Right click and search for sequence. Go ahead and select it. And this
Okay.
node does exactly what it says. It executes code in a sequence. So what we're going to do is recreate a previous example that we've used in the lesson before by first shuffling our array. So go ahead and connect the first pin to shuffle. And second, we want to simply display index 0. So here we are getting the results of index 0, and we simply use print string to see the results. And connect then 1 to print string, And if you double click on any of the execution wires, like so, you create what is called a reroute node. And this is a way of organizing the wires. So click and drag to organize the results, and then simply connect the event begin play to the sequence node. Let's go ahead and compile.
I'm just gonna watch it and then I'm gonna do it. Cause
now
like
click
what?
on simulate. And in this case we get Koki Games. Stop, simulate again. And in this case we get Epic Games.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and stop.
Just choosing one out of the arrays.
As you can see, we are simply executing the shuffle first and then grabbing the first index and displaying it.
Wait
Again,
a minute.
we can continue to
okay, how much longer is this gonna take? Oh my god. Okay, so if these are 5.3, this is gonna be, I don't know what. Huh? 5.21, what's that? But they gonna take a long time. They gonna take a long time. Game update, Genshin Impact versions 4.1. Is this game good? That's my question. Is this game actually fucking good? Embark on a journey across Teyvat to find your lost sibling and seek answers from the gods of each element. Explore this wondrous world, forces with diverse characters, countless mysteries. Swimming, okay. Is this for mobile? Cross-platform. MMO multiplayer. Version 4.1. How many gigs? Back in the day, I would check how many gigs it was to know if it was a good game or a bad game. I knew that like 400 gigabyte game was 400 megabyte game was like a decent MMO, and then like you had like some that were like 1 gig and it was like shit's 1 gig, bro. Like watch out with that game. Those are actual factuals. What's Genshin Impact's size? What? You need a minimum storage of 100 gigabytes for this? What the hell? Isn't this a mobile game? What? Uh, why does it do all this? That's doing too much.
to add more and more pins to the node to execute code in a sequence.
Wow.
Now let's go ahead and remove all of the nodes from this example.
Okay.
And now right click and search for flip-flop. This node simply executes path A and B in an alternating manner. Call the node again, grab our myArray variable in that. Now let's go ahead and copy those nodes, paste them at the bottom, and connect them to B. We'll use a reroute node here. The results of index 0. We'll change this to in the event begin in between. Finally, we'll drag from the print string at the top all the way to the reroute node here to keep the code organized. A, which will print the results of index n, but this time flip-flop should now go through and compile and go back to our map.
It checks if it already did A and then
click
does
on
B,
C.
and if it does B, it does A, and if it does
As
A,
you
it
can
does
see,
B.
stop
That's cool.
and go back to our blueprint. As you can see, it printed in click on simulate. As you can see, it printed index 0 and then index 1. Let's go ahead and stop and go back to our blueprint. This isn't the best example. Normally you would do this for more practical examples, such as a light switch would be a great example where the player would simply interact with a light switch, and every time the player would interact, the light would either turn on or off. Put it just once. So we'll stick to the array example. For this next example, we have a node that guarantees that our code will be executed just once. So go ahead and right click and search for do once.
Okay.
These nodes play. Now simply connect event tick, go back to the map here, and let's compile and go back to the map.
It's
we
gonna
click
spit
on
it out a
simulate,
shit ton of times.
You'll notice that we're simply
Okay.
and go back in.
Now
This
it's gonna
code
do
will
once.
go back to our map and click on simulate. So
Okay.
you can go back. This next example is very similar to do once, and the node is called do n. So go ahead and right click, search for do n,
Let me guess. Do N is gonna do it until something tells it not
and in
to.
this case you'll have to scroll all the way down until you find it. So you can see it right here. Go ahead, do n node.
Oh no, it's gonna do it a number of times.
And
Like
as the
that.
node name implies, this will simply allow the execution of its code n number of times. So in this case, n0 means it will not be executed. But if we change this to 1, we are effectively creating a do once node. So let's try that out. Compile. Go back to our, again, blueprint, action to be executed until the node basically locks its execution path. Compile. Go back. It prints and click simulate.
Wow.
Amount of times set pin to execute. And the next node is perhaps the most common flow control technique. It is called and select the node false.
Branch.
A boolean. For our example, let's execute based on a condition which happens to be a boolean. And as we know, a boolean can be true or false.
Okay, so we stick a boolean into a branch always, probably. So if the light switch is on, we hit. But how the fuck do we do that?
Be a boolean. And as we know, a boolean can be true or false. So for our example, let's go ahead and drag our array and use the contain node. And in this case, let's go ahead and click on our array and copy the first one here, Koki Games, and paste it in here. Let's go ahead and connect it. And we'll simply use a print string to let us know if it found the item or if it did not find the item. So let's go ahead and add our print strings. And for this example, I'll simply add item found. Now go ahead and copy the same node and connect it to false, but this time add item not found. Go ahead and compile, go back to our map, and click on simulate. As you can see, it says item found. Let's go back to our blueprint And let's simply
Okay, so checking the array if it contains, and if it contains, then pam pam, if not, pam pam. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that for things like arrows or your bullet chamber, say your magazine, if it contains bullets, then you can shoot, and if it does not contain bullets, then it'll ask the player to reload or and not shoot. Play the animation was to not shoot. Okay. How do we build that? I don't know. I don't know, but I understand that. So what else? If it contains, what else could it contain? Okay, so if I want to apply a certain item to something, like say I have a potion, right? Um, bro, what the fuck is wrong with the dogs next door, bro? Like honestly, like there's some dogs that never go out, they never get walked or anything. They bark all day because they have no idea what the outside world is. And I honestly can't do anything about it because like I don't want to get shot. Mexico's is dope. Um, okay, so it contains. The magazine example was decent. If it has bullets, okay. So what else? An array if it contains. Oh, okay, okay. So if you're trying to make like a specific quest work, for example, you're catching something, and when when an item goes inside of its location, like the box, say physically, when you catch something, it'll it'll can it add one thing to an array? Yeah. We'll make an array that's called items in the box. And then when something lands on it, it grabs that item and it puts it in the array. And then it can check if it contains, I don't know, 10 10 items, which would be the max number of items that you could put in the box, maybe. And then once it reaches the number 10 item, if it contains, it would have to check if it contains like 10 different things. No, it would have to check if the index, it would have to check the index. If the index is equal to 9, because it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If the index is equal to 9, then it should be full, right? So then you would execute you stop catching things, stop adding things to the thing. I don't fucking know.
add an additional character to Koki Games. Let's go ahead and compile.
Error.
Go back to our map and click on Simulate. As you can see, it said item not found. Let's go back to our blueprint. Very simple node, but extremely useful. You'll find that we're going to be using this node extensively as we go along the course and continue to use more and more complex examples.
Nice.
Let's go ahead and remove the nodes. For these 3 examples, we will use what are called loops. A loop is a simple way of repeating an action a certain number of times. So the first thing we'll use is called a for each loop. So right click and search for each. Go ahead and select it.
For each loop.
And you'll see that the node has an execution pin and a connection to an array. This node will simply execute for every single element in the array.
Wow,
So if we
wow,
simply
wow,
drag
wow,
our array
wow.
and connect it as so, you'll see that now we have a few things going on here. We have a loop body,
Hello,
we
body.
have an array element,
An array
and
element.
an array index.
An index.
This node will execute its loop body for every single element in the array. In this case, we have 3 elements, index 0 through 2, so it'll execute 3 times, and every time it executes, it'll return the actual array element, which is a string, and the index starting from 0. When it completes all of this, it'll then execute the completed pin, as you can see here. So a simple example would be to print all of the elements of our array. And we can do that by simply using a print string.
Wow.
Like so. As you can see, for every item, the loop body will execute a print string and will simply print the array element, as so.
No
Let's
way.
go ahead and connect the begin play. And finally, let's do another print string at the end to make sure that the node completed. For this example, enter completed. Now let's go ahead and compile.
Wait, so you can make something that's called delete the gray items in your inventory. So for each in the array. Oh yeah, because you can add things to an array, right? So you would add things to sort it out. You can add things to arrays. Okay, so you would add, like, say, all the gray items to the array gray items, and it's just a bunch of gray items. Like, it just keeps adding stuff. So then you can run a code that's called for each it calls out every item in the array, and then it could do something like it could do a function. Am I understanding or am I not understanding?
Let's go back to our map and click on simulate. Notice that we have all of the array elements printed with completed at the end. Go ahead and stop. Let's go back to our blueprint. This is a very common example of how we can iterate or go through all of the elements of our array and perform a certain action. The next loop type is called a for loop. So go ahead and right click and search for loop. Here at the bottom, you'll see that we have 2, for loop and for loop with break. Go ahead and select
for each and then for loop. What the fuck is that then?
And you'll notice that we have very similar output nodes here. We have a loop body, we have an index, and we have a completed. However, instead of taking in an array, it'll simply repeat an action between the first and the last index. So if we wanted to replicate this exact setup, we could do it with a for loop. We know by clicking on our array that we have 3 elements in our array.
0 to 2.
So if we go from 0 to 2,
right,
we'll go through all of the items in our array.
Of course.
And we can simply copy our array like
Yeah.
so and use a get node, and then we can print this to the screen. This is an example we've done on our previous lesson, but now we're integrating that with a for loop. So if we connect this to the loop body, we will then print element 0 every time we iterate between the first and last index. But lastly, if we connect the index from the loop to the actual input pin of our get, we will now effectively print every single item in the array between index 0 and 2. And if we copy this node here and connect it to completed, you'll see that we have effectively done the exact same setup as above. So go ahead and connect begin play to our for loop like so, compile, and now let's go back to our map. Click on Simulate, and as you can see, we have the exact same setup. On Simulate, compile, and now let's go back, loop like so, compile.
Okay, so for each it spits, and then for each it spits because you're making a loop. Just the same thing, just different purposes will be used in different ways, okay?
And now let's go back to our map. Click on Simulate, and as you can see, we have the exact same setup. Go ahead and stop and go back to our blueprint. In this case, we matched it exactly to our array. But notice that you can obviously change the numbers here and do something to a subset of the array. For this next example, let's go ahead and remove all of the nodes that we have here. Right click and search for while loop. Go ahead and select it. And this loop will execute as long as the condition here is true. This loop is useful when we don't know exactly how many times we need to repeat an action. As long as this condition here is true, the loop body will be executed and the node will be called again. Notice that this means that if the condition never turns to false, the loop will continue to execute indefinitely. This is called an infinite loop, and it'll typically crash your program. Unreal is smart enough to detect an infinite loop, it will simply stop execution. So we will try again on this example to recreate what we have done with the other two loops. But this will be a little bit more advanced because we need to now take care of the condition to make sure that we do not have an infinite loop. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we print our elements to the screen as before. So go ahead and drag your array, select get, and let's use the get node here as before and use the print string. Let's go ahead and connect the loop body, and now we see that we are simply printing element of index 0 every single time the loop body.
Shit, infinity loop detected. It already happened to me. Okay, what are we doing wrong? Okay, I know. We was in the first person. And then here comes my weapons. And let's just delete this. I'm in a string here, sniper, different weapons. Okay, and then I have a thing here called my shit. It's a infinite loop. So okay, I think it's now not an infinite loop. Let me just play this real quick. We get 2 and we don't get any errors. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we're not doing too bad. We're not doing too bad. I'm debugging my own dumb shit. So that's it's pretty decent. It's better than I could ask for. For instance, would you like to reopen them? Yeah. Let me put these stock all this stuff here. GM target game. This was like super fucking complicated to be like a beginner fucking friendly class for actors. Like I didn't understand any of this stuff. You know? Maybe I can understand it now. A week later. Let's see. Show end screen. Is game over? Lost game. Lost game. Is game over? Create WP screen. Okay. How do we know if we lost the game? How do we know if we lost the game? You're adding score. Show end screen. Update score. User interface max score. Okay. Like, I do understand it. I just forgot. Like, what the fuck? I would have to do it probably again to like really get into it. All right, so let's see this while loop.
Executes. However, we want to make sure that we update the index value here so we can iterate through all the elements of our array. The easiest way to do this is to simply create a variable that will keep track of the index that we need to use here. So go ahead and right click and select promote to variable. And in this case, let's call this variable counter. Compile. And as you can see, we are now using the counter variable, which has 0 by default, to grab our element that we want to print on the screen.
Okay, so we're using a variable instead of using an index, we're using a variable that refers to the index. So then that variable can further change or say, yeah, I could like add 1 to that variable every time I get a coin. Maybe. What the fuck, dude? It's like, how do you even do this? How do you even fucking... Okay, let's keep going.
However, since we want to go down the array, element 0.
Okay, so this is what's gonna actually happen. I am gonna listen to this tutorial. Then I'm gonna do the homework. And I'm gonna do that until I'm done with the whole learning the code in UE5. And then I'm gonna go and watch the MMO video.
0, index 1, index 2, etc. We need to make sure that we increase our counter every single time the loop body is called. So go ahead and select counter, copy it and paste it, and drag from counter and search for plus plus. This will give us a node that is called increment int, and as you can see, it simply adds 1 to the specified value.
Okay.
And then sets it. Go ahead and select it.
Perfect.
And connect it to print screen.
Beautiful.
So now every time the loop body is called, it'll print the element with the index based on our counter, and it'll simply increase our counter by 1. So counter will be 0, 1, 2, 3, etc.
Okay.
Now we need to deal with our condition to make sure we don't have an infinite loop. So let's go ahead and connect our node here and give ourselves a little bit of space.
Condition, so we don't have an infinite
loop. So let's
loop.
think about this a little bit. We want the while loop to continue printing all our elements as long as we have enough elements in the array.
Okay.
So the first thing we'll remember is from our previous lesson, there is a way to get the number
last
of items inside our array, and that is called the array length. So go ahead and select your array, copy and paste it, and drag and search for
array length.
We have the length of our array, which we know is 3 by looking at the number of elements here, and now we want to make sure that the loop continues to run as long as our counter is less than the number of elements in our array. So grab the counter and copy it and drag from counter and simply search for less than. Select less and now simply connect the length to the other pin.
That's so easy.
Let's move the nodes here and connect the boolean to our condition.
So it just checks,
Now let's
make
quickly
something.
analyze what we're doing here. When we first call the while loop, it'll analyze the condition here and it'll say, is the counter
And if it is, then it's gonna
less
go
than
print.
the length of our array? Our counter will be 0 and the length of our array is obviously 3. This will evaluate to true, which means that the loop body will execute, will print element 0, and it will increase our counter by 1. When the loop is called again, it'll once again evaluate our condition. This time counter is 1.
Nice.
Is 1 less than 3? And it'll execute again. Eventually our counter will increase to 3. In that case, when the loop is called, the condition will read, is 3 less than 3?
3.
Which will obviously result in false. And at that point, the loop will be completed.
3.
So let's go ahead and
3.
use a print
3.
string here as before.
3.
And simply type complete. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see the entire example. Go ahead and compile. And now let's go back to our level. Click on simulate and watch the results.
Completed.
Let's go ahead and stop
Yes.
and go back to our blueprint. As you can see, we have replicated the same example as before by using the while loop. Obviously, in an example like this, you would simply use click on simulate and watch the results.
See, okay, so it did Cookie Games in Unreal, then Epic, then completed.
Let's go ahead and stop and go back to our blueprint.
Okay, so if I have can I add event begin play? Oh, so can I do like something else from this? Like the while loop? Oh God. Do once. Okay, let's just delete all of this shit. And let's do while loop, and then the condition has to be you get array, and then you check for the length. I'm not looking, by the way. I'm not looking. I'm not looking. And then you check if the is less than or equal to and then you manually I'm looking, damn it, you make a new variable, call this integer, and call this count, just because we need a counter. And this counter, or no, this, how does it go? The counter is gonna add up every time it goes through the okay, we got this block. Get print string, and then a print string. Oh, so you attach the counter to what it gets. The same thing is gonna drive the other thing. Okay, so they just that was easy, bro. How did I not know that one? Okay, so the same counter that gets increased by 1 is the same counter that you used to get. So print string History, and then if completed, then you say I offered breakfast to my mom at 7 and she answered at 9, and I just saw this at 10. So, but if she wants breakfast, I'll still cook her breakfast because we like that. It do be like that. Okay, so we have our begin play, our count, our string, and that's pretty. Oh yeah, we gotta increase the counter every time at the end of this of everything. Yeah, we go add, or no, we go plus plus increment int, and we're gonna attach the counter. Damn it. Attach the count over there, and that's it. Where did it do hello? Oh, it does hello at the end. What? Okay, so it's not a less than or equal to, it's a less than. It's just a less than. If the counter is less than the length, keep going. So the length is, the counter is 0, the length is 2, so it's gonna go around it, and right here it prints out 0, it prints out hit, and then it's gonna print, no, it's gonna add 1 to the counter, check if it's less than length. 1 is not less than 2, so then it's gonna go ahead and get 1, index 1, and then it's gonna go print, it prints it out, and then it adds 1 to the count. Now count is now 3, and it's gonna go ahead and check if 3 is less than 3. Less, if 3 is less than 2, no, counter is now 2. I'm just gonna check if 2 is less than 2, and everything was going good, but like now my brain doesn't understand it. Okay, whatever. Let's just hit play and see what happens. Hello, okay. And then the add is completed. Cool, so a while loop contains what it's gonna do until, and you kind of want to make it go +1 and add a count to it, and then you want to stop it with a condition. Okay, got it. Hello. Hey, hello. What
As you can see, we have replicated the same example as before by using the while loop. Obviously, in an example like this, you would simply use the for each loop. That would be the easiest way of accomplishing our goal. But nonetheless, it's a good example to really understand how you would use the while loop. And always make sure that there is one way that the condition will eventually turn to false. Otherwise, you will get that infinite loop issue. So let's go ahead and remove all of the nodes here for our next example. And so far, we have iterated through the array one by one and done something specific, usually the exact same action for every element in the array. But what if we wanted to have different actions happen based on different elements of the array? That is when we use a switch statement. So let's go ahead and think about this for a second. Go ahead and drag your array to the event graph like so. And let's use the random node as before. And now we have a random element from the array. But let's say that we wanted to do different things based on the element that was selected. You can simply drag and search for switch, and you will find that we have switch on string. Go ahead and select that and connect it to begin play. The switch node will have different pins for the different values that can go inside the selection. Right now we simply have a default pin, but you can clearly see that we have an option to add additional pins. So go ahead and click add pin. And now you'll see that we have a new node called case_0. Obviously, this is just the default value. So if you go to the details panel, you can see that we basically have an array with a string here that we can change to match our selection. So if we click on our array here, we see that our first selection, index 0, is Koki Games. So if we go back to our switch on string node, we can simply enter the exact same here. And now you can see that we have a pin for Koki Games. Let's go ahead and do that for the other two.
Oh.
As you can see, we now have 3 different pins for each individual item in our array: Koki Games, Unreal Engine, Epic Games, and Default. Default simply will fire if nothing else is applicable, then a default pin will fire. You can add as many pins as you want, but in this case we'll again keep it simple and use a print string to notify us when a selection was made. So go ahead and add a print string. And for this one, let's just simply say Koki Games. Many is applicable, then a default pin will fire. You can add as many pins as you want, but in this case we'll again keep it simple and use a print string to notify us when a selection was made. So go ahead and add a print string. And for this one, let's just simply say Koki Games and connect it to the right pin. Let's do the same thing for the other 2 pins. And now let's add one last one to default. And in this case, let's simply add item not found. Let's go ahead and compile and see what's going to happen here. Every time we begin play, we will simply grab a random item from our array, and our switch statement will execute a different action based on the random item that was selected. Because random will always pick an item that is found in the array, we should never see the default pin execute, because these options will always execute, at least one of them. But in the case when we don't have random and we have another entry, there is a possibility that we may not have the option, and in that case we would fire the default node. So let's go back to our map and test this out. Click on simulate, and in this case we see Koki Games. Let's try again, and we have Koki Games again. In this case we have Unreal Engine,
Okay, we get crit hit miss. Let's see.
And in this case, we have Epic Games. Let's go back to our blueprint. As you can see, we are executing different code.
Man, I gotta answer my phone.
coding paths based on our selection. You can have switch statements for almost any kind of variable, floats, integers, strings, etc. And this is a very useful node every time you want to have a different code execute based on your selection. Let's do a quick recap. We learned about the sequence node and how it executes code sequentially. We learned about the flip-flop node and how it alternates between two execution paths indefinitely. We learned about the do once node, which executes code once and can be reset. We looked at the do n node, which executes code n number of times and can also be reset. We learned about the branch node and how it executes one of two execution paths based on a resulting condition, which is a boolean. We learned about the for each loop, which loops through all elements in an array. We also learned about the for loop, which loops through a first and last index. And we also learned about the while loop, which loops indefinitely until a condition is false. And finally, we looked at the switch statement, which chooses an execution path based on the selection. If you want to practice what we learned, look at this table and think of any other examples where each node would be useful. And that's all for this lesson. Thank you so much for watching, and that's all for other examples where each node would be useful. Table and think of any other examples where each node would be useful.
I'm trying.
And that's all for this lesson. Thank you so much for watching.
There.